Hi, my name is Samantha Leone, and in this presentation for Organic Valley, I'll be discussing public relations theory as it relates to practice, examining how academic research has shed light on ways to overcome professional challenges, as well as how to tap into opportunities that are vital to long-term success. I'll cover concepts from public relations theory in 6 realms, including ethics and values, international and global practices, gender and race, leadership and engagement, transparency and authenticity, and activism and postmodernism. In addition to providing actionable recommendations in each of these areas, I'll leave you with some final thoughts on the benefits of using theory to inform every aspect of Organic Valley's strategic communications. Now, beginning with ethics, Bowen has written that communication is inherently good in its purest form because it leads to the unfolding of knowledge and truth. According to Bowen, the normative concepts that demonstrate inherent goodness in public relations include collaborative decision making, listening to publics and appreciating them, the pro social value and meaning of public relations itself, dialogue and responsiveness, competition and conflict management, responsibility, and finally, autonomy. And in terms of values, as Organic Valley seeks to shift perceptions and influence behaviors among its publics, Trainer has suggested that human values, motivations, and emotions are often the strongest drivers of behavior and decision making. And this leads me to my first actionable recommendation. To navigate today's values driven environment, Organic Valley can capitalize on the power of the moral foundations that Trainer has discussed, which serve as the internal incentives influencing people's responses to communication initiatives. Secondly, I'd recommend that Organic Valley adopt a reflective management approach, which integrates Bowen's 7 good concepts that I touched on earlier, as well as authenticity, consistency, and ethical leadership, all of which work together to help co-ops like Organic Valley positively contribute to society. Now, moving on to international and global theory in public relations, Moyeda, Co-Chair, and Wilson have found that there are big challenges faced by organizations seeking to connect with publics and partners in more than one country, and many struggle to find the right balance between standardization, with its centralized messages, and localization, where communication approaches are more sensitive to cultural nuances. However, as Gregory and Fox have illustrated, public relations is defined by widely shared communication capabilities that transcend country-specific environments and allow for the building of a flexible and dynamic global community. Because Organic Valley exports its products around the world and works with farmers in multiple countries, I'd recommend that Organic Valley invest in localized strategies whenever they are deemed relevant and possible, as they're worth the extra resources. I'd also recommend that Organic Valley look to Gregory and Fox's Global Capability Framework, which outlines the ubiquitous capabilities I mentioned earlier and can guide management among individuals, teams, and leaders throughout Organic Valley's operations. Now, moving on to gender and race, Golombisky has suggested that feminist theory in public relations has been narrow in scope, typically aligning with either radical or liberal feminist thought. However, she argued that neither of these perspectives adequately encompass goals that could lead to social justice, which she defined as the sustainable material and social circumstances in which all people enjoy general well-being, participate in self-determining communities, and thrive in the pursuit of fulfilling lives. In terms of race theory and public relations, researchers have also pointed to the importance of all individuals being able to live to their full potential, regardless of race. Significantly, Logan has argued that racial diversity in public relations and in corporations improves society as a whole. However, currently, the majority of leaders are white in the US due to systemic racism. So, first, in terms of recommendations, I would suggest that Organic Valley move beyond the narrower goals associated with gender equality and instead serve social justice through more comprehensive efforts. Secondly, I would suggest that Organic Valley extend leadership opportunities to individuals based on talent and skill versus race, while being cognizant of the racial imbalances that affect minorities. And this leads me to research on leadership and engagement in public relations. With leadership, Min, Chen, and Ji have found that top leaders strongly influence organizational image, purpose, vision, and culture. And the authors disputed that leadership communication is a significant channel through which employees and external stakeholders form perceptions and attitudes, as well as behavioral decisions. On engagement, helpfully, Dinesh has explained that engagement is not simply communicative interaction, but a multi-dimensional concept in which organizations and their publics, sharing mutual interests, interact with each other along a continuum that ranges from passive to active communicative behavior, with organizations using forms of engagement that range from controlling to collaborative in meeting or adjusting goals. Therefore, I would first suggest that top leaders in Organic Valley use their positions to engage in leadership communication that lends to an organizational culture reflecting Organic Valley's mission and philosophy. Secondly, I recommend that Organic Valley develop strategies that align with the communicative behavior of target publics along the aforementioned continuum, bearing in mind that some publics engage cognitively and emotionally rather than behaviorally. Now, with transparency, OJ has found that it's essential for organizations to practice both organizational and communicative transparency, because this double transparent approach leads to strong relationships between organizations and their publics and affects the bottom line. And in terms of authenticity, Moyeda and Jane have demonstrated that commitment to authenticity is the key to thriving in today's globalized market, as perceived authenticity is directly instrumental in establishing legitimacy and procuring a positive future. So, first, in terms of transparency, I recommend that Organic Valley cultivate an organizational culture that grants autonomy to its public relations specialists, so that these communicators can fully propel Organic Valley toward exemplary levels of transparency. Secondly, Organic Valley can strengthen perceptions of authenticity among the local farmers it works with and among its stakeholders by acting in accordance to its identity, values, and mission. Okay, moving on to activism and postmodernism. With the latter, public relations theorists Cizek and Logan have disputed that the census, a postmodern concept, is a favorable alternative to standard public relations approaches that embrace symmetrical, dialogic, and collaborative ideals. And in corporate political advocacy, especially, the authors argued that organizations can distance themselves from traditional communication strategies and use antagonistic interaction to facilitate social change. In terms of activism, Woods has written that it's quite possible for corporations to lessen tensions and increase harmony with activist organizations through issues management and careful evaluation of the situations at hand. Significantly, she pointed to the ongoing nature of activism and the importance of investing in long-term commitments to issue resolutions. So, based on Cizek and Logan's research, I would recommend that Organic Valley consult its public relations team in advocating for social justice, as the authors have found that public relations practitioners are well suited to guide endeavors in this realm. Secondly, based on findings from Woods, if Organic Valley is pressured by activist organizations, which is likely given the organic foods industry, I would suggest that Organic Valley always respond to activists in some form after examining their claims and develop a more comprehensive response from there, potentially in the form of corporate political advocacy. In closing, it's essential to recognize that public relations theory has invaluable real-world implications that can inform strategic communications and leadership approaches within Organic Valley, as well as help the co-op navigate today's fragile social climate ethically, sensitively, and resourcefully. Thank you for your time today.